Hello everyone, welcome to week 2. I hope that you enjoyed week 1. Based on my experiences in past classes, I'm going to point out some key tips that people should follow in order to avoid some kinds of potential mistakes or penalties as they complete their week 2 graded exercises. In general, when it comes to topic 2, week 1, DQ1, the portion of the question students are most likely to miss involves successfully addressing the political culture of a country. As a helpful definition, it is a set of shared views and normative judgments held by a population regarding its political system. In other words, it is the political values and customs that the members of a political community may hold in common about themselves and their political community as political actors. For example, citizens of the United States are often seen as being strongly identified with a cultural phenomenon known as American exceptionalism, which may include a devoted ideological and emotive adherence to the United States, or loyalty, as a unique country with a special place and mission in the world, as a symbol of universally virtuous and applicable values, with these norms including those of liberty, equality, self-government, and individualism, among others, and a secular yet almost religious reverence for the framers of the Constitution and the Constitution itself. Thus, you are being asked to research what cultural norms and values people from Australia, Brazil, China, India, Nigeria, and so on are held in common by those people. If you have any questions, please let me know. Now remember that you only have to research one country, alright? You don't have to research all of those, just one. When it comes to topic 2, DQ2, the aspect of the response students most commonly get wrong are in addressing undemocratic aspects of Congress. A key issue with this is that students often get confused by the term undemocratic and assume that it is anything wrong or bad, and thus the correct answer is anything they do not like about Congress, especially if they think it is unfair. However, that is not what is meant here. Instead, democratic just means aspects of Congress which reflect majority rule and elements of Congress which reflect undemocratic aspects are those that go against majority rule. So democratic aspects of Congress are those which are in line with majority rule, and elements of Congress which reflect undemocratic aspects are those which reject or go against majority rule. Thus, the United States Constitution has elements which allows for self-government via majority rule and are democratic, and elements which constrain it to protect minorities from abuses by the majority. So the undemocratic aspects are there to actually protect the minority groups from being abused by the majority. As an illustration, the size of the House of Representatives is by population, and that is democratic. In the case of the Senate, however, every state receives 2 senators regardless of the population of the state. It receives 2 senators regardless of the population of the state, which makes this undemocratic. For example, a state such as Wyoming, with a few 100,000 people, has as many senators as California does, with tens upon tens of millions of people. Finally, when it comes to the week 2 paper assignment, on basically changes in the executive branch of government, particularly the bureaucracy and the executive, students usually miss out on specifically identifying what elements of change are associated with the change in capabilities and which are a change in the nature of the national government. Therefore, please state which is each. So tell me when you're speaking about changes in the nature of the national government, and tell me when you're discussing changes in the capabilities of government. And speaking of which, while students often understand that a change in capabilities means a change in how much the government can or cannot do, a change in the nature of the national government means a change in what the duties of government are in and of themselves. For example, the 14th Amendment after the Civil War and during Reconstruction changed the nature of the American government so that it could intervene on behalf of the rights of individual citizens against abuses by state and local governments in a way that it could not do before. The 14th Amendment gave the national government of the United States a new set of duties and responsibilities it did not have before, protecting the rights of individuals, in that case freed slaves, from abuses by state and local governments, such as those that wanted to reassert white dominance over the freed slaves with things such as the Black Codes. Before that, as an example, the Bill of Rights only provided protections against abuses by the national government, not state and local governments. So for most of its history, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, wasn't really that big of a deal because people usually didn't deal with the federal government. If they suffered abuses, it was by state and local governments, and the Bill of Rights didn't protect them against that. But after the 14th Amendment was passed, and despite efforts to roll it back by a racist and reactionary Supreme Court and society throughout the second half of the 1800s and the first half of the 20th century, decades later, the 14th Amendment got its protective teeth back and got it back with a vengeance. This is seen in how elements of the 14th Amendment, such as the Due Process Clause and or the Equal Protection Clause, have extended constitutional protections to a wide diversity of people on a wide range of issues, from same-sex marriage to contraception to the civil rights movement to the rights of the accused and so on. And thus, when we look at the 20th century, we see that easily, and even today, the most quoted amendment, time and time again, in Supreme Court rulings and court rulings in general, is the 14th Amendment. You know, liberals like to focus, the old saying is that liberals focus on the First Amendment, conservatives focus on the Second. The reality is it's the 14th. Because it so much fundamentally changed how much the federal government could do in terms of acting on behalf of protecting individuals when there were abuses against citizens at the state, local government, and even by the private sector. Okay. Sorry, I gotta find my place. I apologize. All right. Another matter to look at is the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal in the wake of the Great Depression of the 1930s. You could choose to do this, and how it dramatically advanced both the role of government in providing economic protections and benefits for its citizens, and government and regulation and management of the economy. Examples of FDR's numerous actions include the introduction of Social Security and FDIC insurance and regulation of the banking industry. It's important to remember that one of the things that made the great stock market crash so bad was all these banks went broke because they weren't regulated. And when they went broke, there was a run on the banks. All the money was taken. And if you had your money there, you lost it all in many cases. So you weren't able to get your money back because the bank went bankrupt. But after FDIC came in, there's a level of insurance placed on each bank. Excuse me. And thus, if there's a run on the bank, if the bank fails, despite much better enhanced regulation, you could get your deposits in that bank are insured up to like $100,000 or $200. I think it's like $200,000. It could be more than that. And thus, if your bank fails, the federal government has an insurance program that will reimburse you, so you get your money back. So you don't end up having, like, say you've got $10,000. It's your life savings, and you lose it all when the bank fails. That won't happen today because FDR helped put in place FDIC insurance so that you have that money protected. So that if your bank fails, you get that money back. So anyway, and that's something that the government never did before. Okay, was intervene in the economy in that direct a manner. There were things where it did intervene, but not like that. So anyway, you find the square deal from Teddy Roosevelt very interesting in that respect. So anyway, I hope that helps. Thank you very much. Goodbye.